Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers, and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
What's going on, Mets fans? And I'm going to warn you right now, this video is going to hurt. If you're already frustrated with how this offseason has gone, if you're already angry about losing Pete Alonso and Edwin Díaz, what I'm about to tell you is going to push you over the edge, because we need to talk about how David Stearns handled the Devin Williams trade and how that single decision destroyed any chance of keeping Edwin Díaz. Hit that like button right now if you're tired of watching this front office sabotage itself, and make sure you stick around because the details of how this went down are even worse than you think. Let me set the stage for you. It's early December. The Mets still have Edwin Díaz under contract, but he's heading into free agency. The relationship between Díaz and the organization is solid at this point. He's coming off a year where he showed he's still one of the elite closers in baseball. The Mets know they need bullpen help. Díaz knows the Mets might make moves. Everything is normal. There's no drama. There's no tension. It's just a standard situation where a team and a player are going to negotiate and figure out what the future looks like. Then David Stearns pulls the trigger on the Devin Williams trade. And let me be clear, getting Devin Williams is not a bad move in isolation. Williams is an excellent reliever. He's got elite stuff. He's been one of the best setup men in baseball for years. If you told me the Mets were adding Devin Williams to a bullpen that already included Edwin Díaz, I'd be thrilled. That's an absolutely dominant back end of the bullpen. That's the kind of depth you need to win in October. But that's not what happened. That's not how this played out. Here's the problem. When Stearns made that trade, he didn't communicate with Edwin Díaz first. And I'm not talking about asking for Díaz's permission or getting his approval. I'm talking about basic professional courtesy. A simple phone call that says, hey, Edwin, we're making a move here. We're bringing in another high-level reliever. Here's how we see this working. Here's what your role is going to be. We still value you and want you to be part of this team. That's it. That's all it would have taken. 5 minutes on the phone, one conversation, basic human communication. But Stearns didn't do it. He made the trade without talking to Díaz. And Edwin found out about Devin Williams becoming a Met the same way you and I found out about it, through Twitter, through news reports, through seeing it pop up on his phone while he's sitting at home wondering what his future with the organization looks like. Can you imagine how that must have felt? You're one of the best closers in baseball. You've given everything to this organization. You've come back from a devastating injury, and they bring in your replacement without even giving you a heads up. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, Díaz is a professional. He should understand that teams make moves. He shouldn't take it personally. And you know what? You're missing the entire point. Yes, players understand that teams make moves. Yes, they know that baseball is a business. But there's a right way to handle these situations and a wrong way. And treating a star player like he doesn't even deserve a phone call before you make a decision that directly impacts his future is absolutely the wrong way. And we know this bothered Díaz because multiple reporters have confirmed it. People close to Edwin have said he felt blindsided. He felt disrespected. He felt like the organization that he had been loyal to was now treating him like he didn't matter. And once you create that feeling, once you damage that relationship, it's almost impossible to repair it. You can't just go back later and say, oh, by the way, we still want you. Here's our offer. The damage is already done. This is exactly what happened. After the Williams trade, after Díaz had time to process what it meant, the Mets tried to engage in contract negotiations. They tried to keep him. But at that point, Edwin's mindset had already shifted. He was no longer thinking about staying with the Mets. He was thinking about where else he could go. He was open to other teams. He was ready to move on. And when the Dodgers came calling with their offer, he jumped at it immediately. And here's the part that should absolutely enrage you. The Dodgers gave him 3 years and $51 million. That's the deal. That's what it took to sign Edwin Díaz. Now, I want you to think about Steve Cohen's net worth. I want you to think about the fact that he just got approval for an $8 billion casino. I want you to think about the Mets' payroll flexibility. And then I want you to tell me why they couldn't match that offer, why they couldn't beat that offer, why they couldn't make Edwin Díaz feel like he was worth 3 years and $51 million. The answer has nothing to do with money. Steve Cohen could pay Edwin Díaz 3 years and $51 million, and not even notice it in his bank account? The answer is that by the time the Mets tried to make a competitive offer, Edwin didn't want to hear it. He was done. He had already decided that he didn't want to play for an organization that treated him that way. And you know what? I don't blame him. If my employer brought in my replacement without even telling me, if they made me feel expendable and disrespected, I'd be looking for the exit too. Now let's talk about the timeline, because this is where it gets even more infuriating. The Mets traded for Devin Williams on December 3rd. Edwin Díaz signed with the Dodgers less than 2 weeks later. 2 weeks. That's how fast the relationship deteriorated. That's how quickly the Mets went from having a good chance to retain there closer to watching him sign with a division rival. And it all happened because David Stearns couldn't be bothered to make one phone call. Think about what this says about how Stearns operates. Think about his priorities. He's so focused on making what he thinks are smart baseball moves that he completely ignores the human element. He's so analytical, so data-driven, so convinced that he's smarter than everyone else that he forgets these are actual people with emotions and feelings and pride. And when you treat people like they don't matter, when you make decisions without considering how they're going to impact the relationships you've built, you end up exactly where the Mets are right now, losing players who should want to stay. And here's what makes this even more frustrating. Devin Williams is great. I'm not knocking Devin Williams. But you know what's better than having Devin Williams? Having Devin Williams and Edwin Díaz. You know what's even better than that? Having two elite closers who can be deployed in any high-leverage situation, who give you matchup flexibility, who make your bullpen absolutely dominant. The Mets could have had that. They could have had both. But Stearns was so focused on making his clever trade that he destroyed any chance of retaining the player who was already here. This is the same pattern we saw with Pete Alonso. No communication, no relationship management, just cold, calculated decisions made in a vacuum without any consideration for how they're going to be received by the players involved. And now the Mets have lost two of their most important players in the span of a few weeks, not because they couldn't afford them, not because the players demanded unreasonable contracts, but because David Stearns has no idea how to manage basic human relationships. You want to know what Edwin Díaz said when he signed with the Dodgers? He talked about how the Dodgers are a winning organization. He talked about their culture and their communication and how they make their players feel valued. Those comments weren't random. Those were direct shots at the Mets. When a player leaves and immediately starts praising his new team for the exact things his old team failed at, that's not a coincidence. That's a player telling you exactly why he left. And you know what the Dodgers did? They communicated with Edwin from the start. They made him feel wanted. They explained their vision for how he'd fit into their bullpen. They treated him with respect and professionalism. They did all the basic things that the Mets should have done but didn't. And now they have Edwin Díaz. And the Mets have nothing but regrets and a fan base that's absolutely furious about how this was handled. Let me ask you this. How many more players is David Stearns going to lose because he can't figure out basic communication? How many more relationships is he going to destroy because he's too focused on being clever and analytical to remember that baseball is played by human beings? At what point does Steve Cohen look at this pattern and say, you know what, maybe we need someone who actually knows how to manage people, not just spreadsheets? Because I'm telling you right now, this is not sustainable. The Mets cannot continue operating this way. You cannot keep losing star players because your front office treats them like they're disposable. Word gets around the league, agents talk to each other, players talk to each other, and when the narrative becomes that the Mets don't value their players, that they don't communicate, that they don't build relationships, that's going to impact every future negotiation. That's going to make it harder to sign free agents. That's going to make it harder to retain your own guys. Edwin Díaz should be a Met right now. There's no reason he shouldn't be. The money was there. The need was there. The fit was there. The only thing that wasn't there was basic competence from David Stearns in managing the relationship. And now Díaz is going to be closing games for the Dodgers, while the Mets are hoping Devin Williams stays healthy and that they can find enough depth to get through a season. So I want to hear from you in the comments. Do you think this was just bad luck, or do you think this is a pattern of incompetence from David Stearns? Do you think he deserves more time to figure this out, or is it already clear that he's not the right person for this job? Because from where I'm sitting, Watching him mishandle yet another crucial situation, I'm losing faith fast. Make sure you subscribe for more honest Mets content that doesn't sugarcoat what's really happening. Drop your thoughts below, and I'll see you in the next one.